primary method means what? Here the researcher is going to collect the data from the respondent for the first time. So, he will not have any other information relating to that topic. Now, what do you mean by structured? So, here the whole interview process or the whole survey process will be structured, or it will be in a systematic manner. Validity means what? Measurement tool is said to be valid only by measuring what is judged. What is exact, so that can be measured properly. Hello everyone, I am Harshita, lecturer, Department of Commerce, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. My dear students, today we are in the 9th session of Unit 3 of the subject Business Research Method, and this is for 5th Sem BCom students. So, today we are going to discuss about the unit that is data collection, and today we are in the 9th session. So, already we have discussed a lot of the concepts relating to this particular unit. So, let us quickly recall what we have discussed in a previous session. So, in the previous session, we were discussing about the questionnaire where, so what do you mean by questionnaire? Questionnaire means it is a list of questions which is been prepared by the researcher and it is been issued to the respondent, or it has been given to the respondent to collect data as well as information for his research work. So that is known as questionnaire, and we have discussed about advantages of questionnaire and disadvantages of questionnaire. So my dear students, you might feel that this unit is a quite lengthy unit. Yes, of course, it is quite lengthy. At the same time, it is a very important unit from the examination point of view. So each and every concept what you are going to learn is very important under this particular unit. So we have seen what are the concepts we have discussed in a previous session. So let us quickly begin to the next concept, that is qualitative techniques of data collection. So you know, for each and every research work, data or information is very essential, where the researcher is going to collect those data or information through main two sources. So, which are the two sources of collecting the data? That is, or two methods to collect the data. One is primary method, other one is secondary method. So, what do I mean by primary method? Here, the researcher is going to collect the data or information from the respondent for the first time. In the sense, so if you see the previous research work, he will not get such information. For the first time, through field survey, he is going to collect the information. So, it is known as what? Primary method. So, under that we have learned various sources to collect the data under primary method. So, just remember, primary method means what? Here the researcher is going to collect the data from the respondent for the first time. So, he will not have any other information relating to that topic, that is initially collected information relating to that topic. So, he is going to collect for the first time, that is primary method. Now, coming to the secondary method. So, what do I mean by secondary method? It is the opposite of primary method. Here, the researcher is going to collect those information which has been already collected by some other researchers or through some other published articles, or he can collect through newspapers, periodicals, magazines. So, these information are collected by individual or organization already, where the researcher is making use of it. That is known as what? Secondary method. And we have seen lot of secondary method that is used to collect the secondary data, that is sources to collect the secondary data. That is all about the collection of information or data. Now let us see qualitative techniques, that is qualitative techniques of data collection. Now what I mean by qualitative as well as quantitative techniques? So we have already discussed about it. So qualitative means what? Here the researcher is going to personally collect the information. That is termed as what? Qualitative technique of collecting the data. Whereas quantitative means what? The researcher is going to use the statistical or mathematical tool in order to collect the data. That is known as what? quantitative. Okay, so quantitative means what? The researcher is going to use the mathematical tool or statistical tool or any other techniques to collect the data. Whereas qualitative in the sense, here the researcher himself is going to collect the data, that is known as qualitative. Now, when this qualitative technique of data collection is suitable, so when the researcher wants to study that particular topic in detail or in depth, then he goes for qualitative techniques of data collection. Hope you are clear with the difference between qualitative technique as well as quantitative technique. Now, we shall see what are the sources or what are the types of sources which is being used under qualitative techniques of data collection. So, the first one is one-to-one interview. So, we have already discussed about personal interview. Here, the researcher is going to contact the respondent personally and he is going to interview him and collect the information, that is collect the required information. That is known as what? One-to-one interview. Now, what type of sources it is? It is qualitative, because here the researcher is going to personally collect the information, not in terms of statistical or mathematical tools. He is personally collecting the information, so it is a qualitative technique of data collection. So, under that I have told you it is a one-to-one interview. Let us see what is this. It is one of the most commonly used data collection instrument for qualitative research. So, it is one of the most used method in qualitative research, that is in order to collect the data or information. Mainly because of its personal approach. Now, why they are going to use this method? It's mainly because of the personal approach between the researcher as well as the respondent. Here, the researcher is going to collect the data from the respondent personally. So, it is one of the most influential method or most commonly used method in order to collect the qualitative data. The interviewer or the researcher collects data directly from the respondents on a one-to-one basis. That is, he is going to personally meet the respondent, he is going to personally interview and speak to the respondent and collect the information. The interview may be informal and unstructured conversational. Now, what do you mean by this? So, we have already discussed about it. So, when a researcher goes for personal interview, when he wants to collect the in-depth information, here how the research will be or how the interview will be, it will be in a form of unstructured as well as indirect interview. There is no particular format, there is no research which is taken place systematically or the interview which is going to take systematically, but in order to get the in-depth knowledge, the researcher will ask as many questions as he wants from the respondent. So, it is called as what? It is informal because it is not in a systematic manner or it is not in a formal manner where a set of question is being given and the same set of question is being asked to the respondent. So, this will not happen in case of one-to-one interview. Here, what the researcher will do? Researcher will set the questions, but he is not going to ask the same exact questions. So, what he will do? In order to get in-depth knowledge, he will ask that questions indirectly to the respondents, where the respondents is going to give the answer indirectly. That is known as what? It is informal as well as unstructured conversation. Mostly, open-ended questions are asked spontaneously. Now, what do you mean by open-ended? Now, till now, we have discussed a lot of the concepts relating to data collection, where we have learnt about qualitative, quantitative, open-ended, close-ended questions. So, many such terms comes under this particular topic. Now, what do you mean by open-ended questions? Of course, I have told you, in personal interview, we are going to get in-depth knowledge or in-depth information. So, in order to do that, what the researcher will do? Researcher will go for open-ended questions. Now, what do you mean by open-ended as well as close-ended question? Open-ended in the sense, here the researcher is not confined to a particular answer. So, in close-ended, what happens? Suppose there is a question and there are 4 options, okay? And the respondent have to answer any of the one answer, or it has to select any of the one answer among that 4 options. So, here for the respondent, there is only limited scope to answer. But in case of one-to-one interview, it is open-ended question. Here, as per the wish, as per the knowledge of the respondent, he can give the answer any way he wants. So, as much as possible, the information will be given by the respondent to the researcher. It is not confined to only particular options. So, here he can elaborate the answer as per his wish. So, it is called as open-ended questions are asked spontaneously with the interviewer letting the flow of the interview dictate the questions to be asked. Now here, what you have to remember here, under one-to-one interview, that is one-to-one or personal interview, here the researcher is going to ask open-ended questions, not close-ended questions. So this is mainly because in order to gain in-depth information or in-depth data from the respondent. Now coming to the second technique, that is focus group. Now what do I mean by focus group? Under one-to-one interview, here the researcher is going to contact a single person and he is going to interview him and collect the information. But in case of focus group, here the interviewer or the researcher is going to focus on a group of people. From them, the researcher is going to collect the information. So this is done in a group discussion setting. So what happens? It is not a single person where will be the respondent, but the respondent will be a group of people, group of similar nature and similar kind of people. That is known as what? Focus group. The group is limited to 6 to 10 people and a moderator is assigned to moderate the ongoing discussion. Now what happens here? There will be a group of 6 to 10 people and each and every answer or each and every discussion which is going on between that 6 to 10 people will be moderated by a person called moderator. Now, by seeing the observation, by seeing the information what they are going to give, so based on that, research activity will be undertaken. So, this helps the researcher to get more knowledge than that of personal interview. Why? Because in focus group, simultaneously he is going to interview a group of people where each and every person will have their own view. So, lot of knowledge can be gained through focus group. And even the time as well as cost is also very less. He need not individually meet each and every person to collect the information. So, directly he is going to select a group of people and collect the information where the thoughts as well as the behavior of the people under that focus group will be ascertained. Depending on the data which is sorted, the members of a group may have something in common. Now I have told you, randomly select the focus group. Depending upon their nature as well as similarity, here the researcher is going to collect that focus or researcher is going to collect the information from that focus group. So, among the focus group, similar nature as well as similar attitude or the similar behavior has to be there. Then only the researcher can collect the exact information. For example, a researcher conducting a study on track runners, that is an athlete, which choose athletes who are track runners or were track runners and have sufficient knowledge of the subject matter. Now here I have told you they should have a common characteristics. For example, other than this, now here they have given about the track runners. Suppose the information or the research is being conducted on track runners, then the respondents will be, that is the focus group respondent will be the track runners. In the same way, if the researcher wants to collect the information from the faculties, then that is teaching faculty, then the respondents will be teaching faculty. Or if the respondents wants to collect or if the researcher wants to collect the information from the students, then students will be the respondent. So, the information which has to be collected from the student cannot be collected from the teachers or it cannot be collected from the parents. Correct? So, Here the researcher has to decide in advance whatever the information he wants and who is the target respondent. So that has to be decided in advance. Now focus group is also one of the qualitative techniques of collecting the data, where here the researcher is going to contact a group of people and collect the information from them, and that too they should have a common characteristics. So that is the second type. Now coming to the third one, record keeping. So what do I mean by record keeping? So you might be knowing about the record keeping or the preserved material. So that is known as what? Record keeping. So this method make use of already existing reliable documents and similar sources of information as the data source. Now here what the researcher is going to do? Researcher is going to take the information from already collected data. It means what? It is secondary data, where the researcher is not going to collect the data for the first time. So already it is being collected and preserved. From there he is going to collect the information. This data can be used in the new research. So while doing the new research also, the old information what has been already collected or already preserved can be used. It is similar to going to a library, just like going to a library and collecting the information. That is, when you go to a library, you will refer number of books, correct? In the same way, while doing the research activity, here the researcher will refer number of articles or number of publications which has been already published and which has been recorded. Therefore, one can go over books and other reference material to collect the relevant data that can be used in the research. So here I have already told you, a researcher, it doesn't mean that he should go for only primary method or only secondary method. He can combine, because few information will be available through secondary method, whereas few information has to be collected from the primary method. So it depends upon the researcher as well as the topic what he has chosen. So here record keeping is also one of the important method to collect the data. Next one is process of observation. So this we have already learnt in the types of research, that is collecting the data through observation. Now how the researcher will collect the data? By observing each and every activities of the respondent. He is going to observe and he is going to record those observations for his research work. So, in this qualitative data collection method, the researcher immerses himself or herself in the setting where his respondents are. So, here what he is going to do? He is going to the place of the respondents where they are situated or where they are located. So, he is going to their place and he is observing them carefully and recording the data as well as information, and keeps a keen eye on the participants and takes down the notes. So what is going to do? Is going to observe them very neatly or through lot of observation. Here the researcher should have lot of patience to observe each and every activities of the respondents, and by seeing the activities of the respondent, he is going to collect the data or information. So for that reason, he should be a keen observer. This is known as process of observation. Here, the researcher is not going to communicate with the respondent. He is just going to observe each and every activities of the respondent. Before that, he has to know whom to observe, who are the target respondent. So, whom to observe. After that, by observation, he is going to collect the data or information. So, besides taking notes, other documentation methods such as video and audio recording. So, this also happens. It's not just that he is going to that particular place and observe each and every time to the respondent. Now, here what he can do, the other method is that he can go for video or audio recording, photography, and similar methods can be used. It need not that he has to personally sit there and observe each and everything. He can use this type of methods also, like video and audio, photography, or any other similar kinds of recording or collection of data. Next one is longitudinal studies. Now here what does it mean? Longitudinal means what? The research work that takes place for a longer period of time. So I have told you it depends upon the topic as well as the information or data which is collected by the researcher. The duration of the research work goes on. So here the researcher may take longer period of time to collect the data also. So, this data collection method is performed on the same data source repeatedly over an extended period. Now, what they are going to do on the same topic, they are going to do the research often and often. That is for a longer period of time on the same research topic they are going to do. Because there will be a lot of fluctuations. So, if you compare from the last year to this year, there are a lot of fluctuation. In the same way from this year to next year, there may be a lot of changes or fluctuations. So, in order to record that, on the same topic, they are going to do the research activity for a longer period of time. So, it is an observational research method that goes on for a few years. So, they have clearly told you it may go on for few years and in some cases can go for even decades. So, this is a type of observation method where they are going to observe each and every activity for a longer period of time. It's not only in terms of year, it may go for even decades also. This data collection method aims to find out correlations through an empirical study of subject with common traits. Now, what they are going to do? They are going to take the same topic, that is a common trait or a common problem, but they are going to analyze what are the changes or what are the differences that takes place from year to year. So, in order to study that, they go for longitudinal studies. So, this is also one of the important qualitative techniques of data collection. Next one is case studies. Now, what do you mean by case studies? A person might have studied on a particular case. Now, or restudying on that particular case study is known as case study. In this method, data is gathered by in-depth analysis of case study. Now, he is going to restudy that case which is already done by some other person. So, that is known as what? Case studies. Now, a person might have studied on a particular topic which is called as a case. Now, what the researcher will do? Researcher is going to study on that particular case which has been already done by some other researcher. That is known as what? Case study. That is, he is going to deeply analyze about that case. He is going to deeply study as well as analyze about that particular case which is known as case study. The versatility of this method is demonstrated is how this method can be used to analyze both simple as well as complex problem. The main intention of studying this case study is to know the versatility, whether it is simple or complex study. The strength of this method is how judicially it uses a combination of one or more qualitative data collection method to draw inferences. That is, they are going to apply different types of qualitative method on same case study and they are going to analyze in depth. That is about case study and it is also one of the important qualitative techniques of data collection. Now, coming to the next topic, that is survey method. So, already we have discussed about survey method. It is one of the important research method or it is one of the important method to collect the data or information. So, sometimes observation method is supplemented with the survey method. Sometimes even the observation method is also supplemented with the survey method. This approach is more suited for gathering descriptive information and this research may be direct or indirect. Now, this is also, I have told you, important method to collect the data or information and the data can be direct or indirect. So, it is of two types. One is structured as well as unstructured survey. So, we have already know what is the meaning of structured as well as unstructured because we have learnt under structured interview and unstructured interview. Now, what do you mean by structured? So, here the whole interview process or the whole survey process will be structured or it will be in a systematic manner. That is known as what? Structured survey. Now coming to the unstructured, it is opposite of structured survey, where the whole system of survey is not systematically arranged. So it is not systematically arranged. That is known as what? Unstructured survey. So let us see the meaning here. Structured survey, they use formal list of questions. So under structured survey, I have told you it will be systematically arranged, which contains formal list of questions to be asked from all respondents in the same manner. Now what they will do? They'll make a list of questions which will be arranged in a systematic manner, and that too it should be a formal questions, and that will be asked to the respondents in the same manner. That is known as what? Structured survey. Now coming to the unstructured survey, they give the interviewer the flexibility to probe respondents and direct the interview according to their answers. Now here what happens? It is opposite to structured survey, where informal questions will be there in the unstructured survey. At the same time, it is not asked in the same manner what is there in the questionnaire. So, in order to get the in-depth knowledge, it will not be systematically arranged, but the questions may be asked and most of the time the questions will be open-ended questions. Here the researcher will ask the respondent open-ended questions in order to get the in-depth knowledge. So, the questions are not systematically arranged. So, hope you are clear with two types of survey. One is structured as well as unstructured survey. Now, let us see what are the advantages here, that is about survey. So, first one is quick and low cost in comparison to observation method. So, through observation method, here the observer has to keenly observe each and every activities. But in case of survey, what happens? Immediate answers will be given by the respondents. So, quick and it is also low cost when compared to observation method. Next one is survey method can be administered to collect many different types of information. So here what happens? I have told you under unstructured survey, here the researcher can ask any number of questions. That is, in order to get the in-depth knowledge or in-depth information, he can ask any number of questions. So what happens here? It will help the researcher to gather more information than that of observation method. Now coming to the disadvantages, so the first one is privacy issues. So privacy issue, one of the most disadvantage here. Now what does it mean? Here most of the respondents will not be able to give all the information to the researcher. It may be the private matters relating to them or the personal things or the personal information will not be shared by the respondent. In such cases, the whole survey activity will become incomplete. So that would be the disadvantage. Next one is reluctance on the part of respondents. So there may be a chances that the respondents might not answer all the questions, or they may neglect to answer the question, or due to their laziness they will not give sufficient information. Some questions may be ignored. In that cases, the survey method is an incomplete system. Okay, so through observation, what happens here? The researcher is going to observe and record the data or information. But in this case, the whole research activity will be dependent on respondent's information. So if the respondent does not cooperate with the researcher, what happens? It relates to reluctance on the part of respondent. Next one is biases. So this is a system where it leads to biases in terms of respondent as well as researcher, and it is one of the disadvantages of survey method. Hope you are clear with this. So we have learned what is survey method, what are the types of survey method, and what are the advantages as well as disadvantages of survey method. Now coming to the next topic, we are going to learn about measurement. So measurement and scaling. So in this session, we shall discuss about measurement, a small topic, and next we shall discuss about scaling. Now what do you mean by measurement? Now I have told you, so till now we have discussed about, that is, identification of problem, And then the researcher knows what is the problem, what are the information to be collected. Now we know what is the information to be collected. Later we have discussed what are the sources of collecting the information, whether they have to go for primary data or secondary data. Now, anyhow, the researcher, by identifying the sources, he has collected the information. Now, whatever the information is collected, it cannot be directly communicated to the users. Correct? So, it has to be made in such a format that it should be understandable to the users. So, there we will use this measurement as well as scaling. Now, what do you mean by measurement? For example, there are 10 diagrams what I have collected from the respondent. Now, I have to name that diagrams with a number or symbols or with any other figures, which identifies that this is the first figure or this is the second diagram, this is the third diagram, where I'll give or where I'll serially number that diagrams. That is known as, so that numbering is known as what? Measurement. Clear? So, why I am going to number this? Suppose if I want immediate information, I can directly refer my diagram 2 or diagram 3. So, that numbering in the form of symbols or any other alphabets, that is known as what? Measurement. So, let us see what is the meaning of measurement here. In research, measurement means the process of determining numbers, that is numbering, for experimental events in accordance with the rules set. Suppose I am going to undertake a research activity where there are number of processes. Okay, so how I am going to measure it? So process 1, process 2, process 3. So that identification is called as what? Measurement. So thus the term measurement states. So let us see then what is this measurement is all about. Selecting observable experiment event. That is, we have to select the observable experiment event. That is the important experimental event which has to be identified carefully. Next one is developing a set of mapping rules, assigning numbers or images to elements representing the measured event. Now, in order to represent that particular event what I am undertaking, so it has to be measured with numbers or symbols or with any other alphabets. So, applying the rules of the map to each of the observed events. So, I have to make it understandable to the users, so I am going to undertake this activity. So, it may be a mapping activity or numbering a particular diagram or representing in the form of symbols or through alphabets. So, that is known as what? Measurement. Suppose a researcher arranges a motor car show. So, he will arrange a motor car show and collect the opinion of the people who visit the show. Now, what is going to do? He is going to collect the information about the respondent, or he is going to collect the opinion of respondent who is going to visit that show. Then the people who visit there can be classified as female. So, if the so here what the researcher is going to do, researcher is arranging a fair, that is motor car fair, where he is going to collect the opinion from the respondent. Suppose he collects the opinion from the female respondent, so he will mark it as F. And if he is going to collect the information from the male respondent, he is going to mark it as M. So this is known as what? Measurement. Clear? For this purpose, any number, that is 1, 2, 3 or any symbol can be given. So, it can be measured in terms of number like 1, 2, 3 or any other symbol can be given. In addition, the research can select a sample of visitors to the store and explain the different types of mapping rules and measure their views with the help of a measuring device. Or he can use any of the measuring device in order to collect the opinion from the respondents who have visited the show. Researcher does not study material properties in marketing research. So, here each and everything what the researcher is going to collect from the respondent, each and everything cannot be studied properly. In order to make the information collected from the respondent, to make it as simple, he is going to use this measurement tool. Instead, he measures the indicators of the property. So these are termed as what? Indicators. So it may be in terms of number like 1, 2, 3, 4, or in case of alphabet A, B, C, D, or in case of any other symbols. So that is known as what? Measurement. Because the user or even the researcher can't go each and every information what he has collected. In order to make it as simple and present in a simple way to the users, he is going to measure in terms of this number, symbol, or alphabets. So that is known as what? Measurement. Now let us see what are the criteria of good measurement here. A good measure includes the following. So let us see what are the criteria. So the first one is validity. So it should be valid. Next one is reality. It should include some reality while collecting the data. Next, sensibility. Next one is feasibility. So these are the main criteria of a measurement. So let us see one by one here. So the first one is validity. So whatever the information what is going to measure, so it should be valid in nature. Measurement tool is said to be valid only by measuring what is judged. So what the information which has been collected by the respondent, in order to make it as simple, they are going to measure it. Since the attitudes of the consumer are so elusive, it is difficult to determine the validity of measuring instrument. But in terms of science, we can use a correct measurement tool. But in case of this business research, it is highly impossible because we are always going to deal with the human behavior which keeps on changing. So it is highly difficult to measure the human behavior which keeps on varying. So validity means what? Measurement tool is said to be valid only by measuring what is judged. What is exact, so that can be measured properly. But the human behavior which keeps on changing, so it is highly difficult to measure. Marketing research studies should be fair enough for universal acceptance, otherwise its data will lead to dangerous decisions. Now, I have told you in case of marketing research also, the marketing is not stagnant, it keeps on fluctuating. In that case also, measurement in marketing research is not proper, then it leads to dangerous decision which is taken in the research activity. So here, while measuring the marketing activity, so it has to be properly analyzed and measured. Next one is reliability. So whatever the information they are going to measure, it should be reliable. In the sense, there should be certain accuracy there. There must be consistency. In the sense, they have to maintain the uniformity. So consistent means what? They have to maintain the uniformity while measuring a particular tool. So there must be consistency or uniformity in the results when research methods are repeated by the researchers. So when a particular research activity is being taken, so there should be consistency or uniformity in the activity. So if it keeps on fluctuating or there is no consistency, then what happens? The research result will go wrong. So they have to maintain consistency or uniformity. The data must be credible, only then there be reality in their decisions. Decisions must be generalizing. So what happens when the information is said to be reliable? So when it is more consistent or more uniform. If the same technique is repeated on the same population or the universe and there shall be a diverted results, then it is considered that the research is carried out carelessly. So I have told you, in science we can apply this measurement tool very easily, but in case of business research it is highly impossible because we are going to deal with the human behavior where the attitude and behavior of the human keeps on changing. Thereby the measuring will be very difficult. So we have to exactly use the correct measurement tool so that if we repeat that particular experiment or a particular research activity number of times, we have to get the exact results. So here, while measuring the tool, we have to be very careful. Next one is sensitivity. Another important feature of good measurement is sensitivity. This is to suggest the ability to discriminate meaningfully the changes in attitudes. That is, whatever the changes that takes place in the attitudes of that particular research, it has to be measured properly. Sensitivity can be achieved by increasing number of measurement types. So, in order to increase the sensitivity, so I have told you it should be more flexible here. So, in order to increase the sensitivity, it should increase the number of measurement tools. That is sensitivity. Next one is practicability. A good measure should represent the practicability character also. So, it is also one of the important feature of measurement or a criteria of measurement, that is, it should be practical in nature. A good practicability character, a good measure of practicability should include the possibility of work. So, here practicability means what? It should be practicable to the current situations. That means it should be economical, convenient and expressive also. That is, it should be suitable for the current situation. So, these are the few criteria of measurement. So, these are the few criteria of good measurement. So, in my next session, I am going to discuss this topic, that is scaling techniques. So, measurement and scaling is a simple topic. So, we have discussed about measurement. In my next session, I am going to discuss about scaling techniques. So, measurement in the sense, why measurement and scaling is being used, whatever the information which has been collected by the researcher, it cannot be directly communicated to the users because lot of information will be collected. So, overall we have to make a summary of the collected information for which the information is too large, for which we have to make it is too short and it has to be communicated to the users. For that reason, we will use measuring as well as scaling techniques. So, my dear students, hope you have understood today's session. See you all in my next session with a new topic. Till then, take care. Thank you.